Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? Good, good, good. It's been 60 years since the Church's last evangelical council, Vatican II, the Second Vatican Council. And at that council, the Church, or the council, referred to the Church as a pilgrim people. I want you to keep that in your minds. A pilgrim people. It means that we are a people who are on a journey, sometimes lost, and sometimes we feel more like wanderers than pilgrims. So, what's the difference between a wanderer and a pilgrim? Well, wanderers, they wander, often alone and without purpose or direction, while pilgrims journey with companions, with a common destination, a common purpose, and in this case, a common destination, a holy destination. For us, it is heaven. As a community of pilgrims gathered here today, I want you to look around, and I would like to invite you to introduce yourself to someone who you do not know next to you. It's really easy. I will show you how. And you don't have to wait for me. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm Tony Morales. What's your name?
My name is Michael.
Michael, happy to meet you. Very good, very good. See, now next Sunday when you come back, you can say hi to your new friend, your fellow pilgrim, and you can call them by their first names. Right, Michael? That is it, right? All right, good. The scriptures, they speak of two dangers that confront anyone on a journey. The first is poor memory. We tend to forget. The second is questioning the wisdom of those we are following. Like last Sunday, when the Israelites questioned Moses when he led them out into the desert. Elijah is a tired traveler, so tired that he prays for death. And it's interesting, but he's out into the desert one day and he's already praying for death. But you have to understand the background in order to understand why he had reached that point. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on this story. Elijah was the last living prophet. They had killed all the other prophets of Israel. He was the last remaining one. And King Ahab was a weak king, and he allowed his wife, Queen Jezebel, to bring paganism into Israel. So instead of worshiping Yahweh God, the God of Israel, the people turned to a pagan god, Baal. Well, Elijah, the one man, the last prophet, gets into a showdown with 450 prophets of Baal. Okay, 1 against 450. And I'm not going to tell you what happens. But if you go to 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 20 to 40, you can read the story for yourselves. 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 20 to 40. In the story, Elijah witnesses the mighty hand of God acting on his behalf. This act enrages Queen Jezebel, so that she sends her armies after Elijah, seeking to put him to death. Well, Elijah flees for his life, but how quickly he'd forgotten the mighty works of God in his own life. He becomes a wanderer. Without food or drink, exhausted, he lays down beneath a broom tree and prays for death. He just can't go any farther. And you know, I think we've all been there at certain points in our lives where emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we are exhausted. We are done. Just like last Sunday's first reading, Israel complained against Moses. They were done. They were hungry, tired, and as they looked out into the vast desert that Moses wanted to take them into, they were afraid. How quickly they had forgotten the sufferings that they endured as slaves in Egypt because they were ready to go back. What happens to Elijah next is an angel is sent by God, and he brings him a cake. He brings him bread to eat, to strengthen him. Not just once, but twice. Bread for the journey. And just like Elijah, just like Israel, we need food to sustain us. But not earthly food. That's not what I'm talking about. You know, when you go out to a nice restaurant for a nice dinner, you enjoy the meal, it's really good, you're very satisfied when you leave, but the next day, you're hungry again. Because earthly food does not satisfy. The matters of the heart and soul need something else. Earthly food will not suffice. We need more. We were made for more. We need heavenly bread to strengthen us. It was an angel that brought the bread to Elijah, and it was manna that rained down from heaven, both from God. But we, the pilgrim people of God, receive something far greater. The food that God gives us is Jesus himself. We call it the Eucharist. Jesus said it himself. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. And the bread I give is my flesh for the life of the world. God knows the journey can be long and hard. But for our deepest longings, nothing else can satisfy the human heart but the living bread. God knows there are times when we just want to give up, like Elijah. And sometimes, like Elijah, our memory is poor, and we forget all the ways God has acted on our behalf. Elijah, now strengthened, walks 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God, to Mount Horeb. And this mountain of God is a symbol for heaven. Elijah's destination once again becomes clear. He is no longer a wanderer, but a pilgrim. For the last 4 weeks, the church gives us John chapter 6. It is referred to as the Bread of Life discourse, as it presents to us the early church and its understanding how God gives himself to his followers as food. He strengthens us here at this altar to continue our pilgrimage in this world. And today's gospel begins with murmuring. At the beginning of the chapter, not today's reading, but a couple of weeks ago, the people are impressed with Jesus' miracle of the multiplications of the fish and the loaves and the feeding of the 5,000. And they even say to one another, Jesus speaks with authority. But isn't this just Jesus? We know him. Isn't he the son of Joseph, the carpenter? How can he say, I've come down from heaven? And even some of his own disciples will become skeptical. And we'll see next week at the conclusion of John chapter 6 how many walk away. This is one of the reasons the bishops of our country set into motion the Eucharistic revival, which we have had for the last 3 years. You see, so many of our people, some estimate up to 70% of Catholics, have walked away from the church. You know who they are. They're your neighbors, your friends, your own families. This Eucharistic Bible revival has been to renew in us a love for Christ in the Eucharist, the source and summit of our faith. It's intended to strengthen us as a pilgrim people and point us towards our destination. But not only that. It is to remind us that we have a mission in this world and in this life. Our job is not only to get to heaven, but to bring as many people as we can with us.